Okay, a marquee matchup in the NBA last night. Little tales from the couch for you on a Wednesday. A few things that I want to get to here. And we're also going to follow up on college football disruption Monday topics. So follow up a little bit on the video that made the rounds. So here's the deal. We've got Cleveland at Boston. Really excited about this one. I think all of us were, kind of like this big matchup with Cleveland getting off to this 15-0 start. 15-0 now is tied with the 93-94 Rockets and the 48-49 Washington Capitals. Ask your dads about that one for the second best start to a season. Of course, Golden State in 15-16 started off 24-0. I would suggest that's the best basketball I've ever seen from a team ever. The beginning of that season for Golden State. And we know what happened at the end. Didn't work out. All right. Couple notes here. This set up great for Boston. Schedule-wise, second game in 6 days. No travel since a game at Brooklyn last Wednesday. It's Cleveland's third game in 5 days. So, you could look at it that way. And then also the health part of this. Strus hasn't played at all, which is something that's great for the Cavs. Looking forward to his return. But then on top of that, no LeVert, no Okoro, and no Dean Wade, all rotational guys. So you knew it was going to set up pretty well here for Boston. A little stat profile for you. Cleveland, number 1 offense, number 11 defense, number 1 in true shooting. Boston, number 2 offense, number 13 in defense, number 3 shooting team. I've emphasized that stat maybe more than others. Both kind of average to even Boston being below average on the rebounding numbers, which would make sense, especially for Boston when you're shooting that many threes. You're not going to be fighting for the boards, but I think one of the problems they've been running into in some of these lesser effort games against inferior opponents, the defensive rebounding had really fallen off for the last 5 or so games. But this game is kind of 2 parts, really. The first half, a 3-point barrage from Boston. They're up 65-48 at the half. They were 14-22 versus 4-14 from 3 for Cleveland. So you're up 30 points in threes. It's hard to beat anybody. But Cleveland is really good, and we see a run. And here is kind of the theme of what I want to talk about. And I promise I won't do this every single time I talk about Cleveland, but I have brought this up before. And I look at the Mobley-Allen minutes. So it's 79-63, 6:55 to go in the third quarter. Niang comes in for Jared Allen. If you look at the shot chart for Evan Mobley throughout this game, in the first quarter, he had 2 shots because the play chart stuff for ESPN.com is wrong. They showed us 1 attempt, but he had 2 in the first quarter at the rim, and that was when Allen was out. He had 3 other shots. Basically, there was 2 threes and a long 2. Because when you watch when they're both in there together, and I saw this live when I saw the game in New Orleans, like Mobley's running to the corner on a bunch of possessions, and it completely limits whatever offensive version you want from him. So in the second quarter, Mobley has a 1 field goal attempt at the rim. It was that right block sweeping bank shot that was actually nasty. And then in the third quarter, when they take Allen out at 5:29, he was benched at 5:29. So 6:55 in the third quarter, they're down 16. There's 6 shots in the paint for Mobley. One of the things that's been really good about the Cavs this year is Kenny Atkinson pushing pace. And I'll never understand why every team doesn't do this, why you would just bring the ball up slow after a make or a miss. But especially off of a miss, push the ball, see what you have, see if somebody gets lost in a cross match, everybody scrambling to match up with somebody, and then see if you take advantage, especially with somebody like Mobley when Allen's not in there and he can run right to the rim. He's going to outrun every other big. And you may get lucky. He got Drew pinned at the rim. There was another weird play where Keita picked up the ball handler. I know you're kind of taught to stop balls, so I don't even know that it was Keita's mistake, essentially. But then Peyton Pritchard ends up pinned against Mobley, and it's because that space there exists for him. Like when you see Allen and Mobley there, even if Mobley's like going to the paint, then Allen's kind of stuck, and then he tries to space out, but nobody's going to guard him out there. And it's a continuation of, despite this team being 15-0, and loving the profile and loving so many things about this Cavs team, Kenny Atkinson is telling us the same things that we've seen in the past, that to get the Mobley you need, and we saw it in the playoffs last year. Granted, the Cavs, all these guys were hurt, and they had no chance against Boston. But you have this moment in the third quarter where, Boston, I think, missed 8 or 9 shots. Mobley's going off. He's getting more opportunities. And so then you fast forward to the fourth quarter, it's 107-100. Mitchell's trying. We'll get to Garland's numbers. I mean, I love Garland. He sucked last night. But they try to do it again. That's where I get the 529. At 529, 107-100 in the fourth quarter, they bench Allen again. But Mobley doesn't even take any shots. So, look, Garland was terrible. He was 3 of 21. Jaylen Brown wasn't great on the other side. Mitchell tried to bring him back, as I said. 35 points, but he needed 29 shots. Cavs only played 8 guys. Side note, Ty Jerome, love it. Just love seeing him play basketball regularly again. There was a string of like 8 possessions in this game where both sides were just hunting. And it was Peyton Pritchard to Sam Merrill. It's just like, here we go. A little Hauser sprinkle in there as well. I give Sam Merrill, friend of the pod, he's battling. Like he's doing the right things. It's just certain moments there. I think Jaylen Brown got him pretty good one time. And he was trying against him, but he holds up. I would even say like Donovan Mitchell's engagement level on perimeter defense last night was terrific. And I think you've seen that a lot because, that's kind of the task of if you want to break through, because they are a really good team, you have to have that kind of commitment. And I think you would say that on the other side, Boston with Mazzulla during this weird malaise prior to this Cavs team, it was, whatever, It's just that we get 82 of these are pretty good. All these other teams in the East besides Cleveland all seem like they're bad right now. And there's no way the rest of these teams are all going to be this bad. But the other thing too, I think is worth pointing out is that there was 6 possessions where Boston hunted Garland 5 of those 6. So look for that later in a game, the next time they match up. So look, here's the overall point. There was no outcome of this game where I was going to all of a sudden change how I felt about the East, specifically Boston and everybody else. Cleveland could have blown them out by 20, even with the schedule setting up, even with the people out for the Cavs. It's going to take a lot of work for me to be convinced to pick another team, even with the 15-0 start here. But I do think the Allen Mobley thing is I know some of you are probably thinking, dude, they're 15-0 and you're doing this again. Yeah, I am. Because I think teams would love to play 5 out. You can play 4 out in the playoffs. Can you play 3 out in the playoffs? And I know some of you will point to Mobley's 37% from 3 the last 2 years. Well, cool with your 0.4 makes per game last year and your 0.7 makes. No team's going to care. There's going to be, okay, you hit a couple. That's fine. We're not stressed. We're not stressed the way Jared Allen is stressed when he's trying to run around and catch everybody. And I think Mobley can do those things. And Mobley was awesome when Allen was out against Boston. And you could just see these plays where if Mobley's the screener and there's no Allen in there, then Mobley will he'll trail the ball handler. And then he's so quick, he's so athletic, and his hands are so good. And he's a really good passer that Mobley can work in a way where if he's not in that action, he's sitting there watching it. It's just, that's tough. Like then that should be a shooter or that should be Strus, but I'm not suggesting you're benching Evan Mobley for Strus. I think you guys all get the point. So I think there's also part of this too, where you look at the lesson from the Tatum, Jaylen Brown pairing and going back to that year with Ime where it was so bad into January and you're thinking, is this actually not going to work? It was the first time I'd ever thought like maybe it won't work with these guys. And then it worked and the patience has paid off. And I think the lesson should always be if you have special players, you don't want to trade a second one for like 3 pieces. It's just to say, and that was prior to some of the other acquisitions, obviously Porzingis and Drew and all that kind of stuff. So when you look at the Cavs and you go, well, what if they make it to the Eastern Conference Finals, but it doesn't look like it's close? I mean, who knows? Who knows what's going to happen with any of this stuff? A couple teams are going to have massive injuries anyway. So at least Cleveland is in the conversation of if things were to break their way, we see it all the time in the playoffs. It's like, hey, just be healthy and be standing. And they weren't last year. Maybe they will this year. So when I think about the patience that you have to have with talent on your roster, but talent at times it can seem redundant. Is the lesson the Boston lesson where the patience pays off? But granted, it's 2 forwards, so it's very different than 2 bigs. Or you have the Minnesota approach where they just, we don't care. They made it to the Western Conference Finals last year. Like, we're going to break up this cat thing. I also think pricing has something to do with that as well as you move forward and look at the salary cap ledger. So there you go. That's what I have on that. There wasn't going to be a result. If the Cavs had blown them out today, I wasn't going to start the show being like, I think we need to rethink the hierarchy of the Eastern Conference. Speaking of benching, LaMelo got benched last night for the last 348 Charlotte's loss at Brooklyn. I know some of you never want to hear anything I have to say about LaMelo, but I will tell you, the games that I watch, I have the hardest time with him because he's so talented and his shot making is absurd. And his start again for a guy that size off the dribble is like whatever percentile you can be in, he's in it. And the passing is real and the size with his passing. So I see an incredibly talented player, but yeah, you're right. Like, I can never get past like, okay, a ton of stats and the shots are going in and I can't believe that one went in, and the clutch numbers that he's had as far as scoring this year, all these big moments he's had. The Houston game where I watched that, I was like, dude, he's the best player on the floor right now. So his ceiling is that he's capable of all that. Yet I have these lingering doubts that I don't know that I'm ever going to get over, where, yeah, sometimes with him, I'm just like, is he a really good stat, but kind of a losing player kind of guy? And then when he gets benched last night, and this is why I pay attention to all these substitution patterns, because I think there are so many hints out there when the coaches are telling you, well, this is what we want to do. So when it happened and I was watching the game, but I wasn't super locked into it, I went back and watched LaMelo's fourth quarter because I was like, let me try to find what's happening here. Now, his shooting was terrible on the night. He had 2 ISO no pass shots that were brutal. And then in transition, he tried to go like 1-on-2 and make this layup, although I've seen him make that layup before, so I don't even blame him for the attempt. And then he fouls somebody immediately, and he takes him out at 3:48. I was like, okay. Because remember, Borrego used to kind of like sneaky bench LaMelo from like 6 minutes till 2 minutes left when he was there. Then we'd bring him back in as if he wasn't being benched, but he kind of was being benched. And look, that has not been the case anymore because he's arguably their most talented player. Yeah, I think he is their most talented player, and the numbers are big time. But the Hornets subbed in 9 players. Excuse me, I should say it this way. From 3:48 on, there were 9 substitutions. They were subbing, defense for offense, offense for defense. When they were down 3 with like 6 seconds to go and they had the ball, they subbed in 2 players down 3, and both were not LaMelo. So I don't think it's about a bad shooting night. I don't think it's about a mistake here. I think there was a delay of game earlier in the game. Because when you watch the fourth quarter minutes, there wasn't anything that was so egregious. Hell, Brooklyn wasn't even, like, they went Watford on them, okay? And they were working smaller matchups. They weren't even putting LaMelo in the action defensively to try to expose him. So it wasn't even that it was some defensive thing. Almost all of those possessions in the fourth quarter, the ball was on the other side of LaMelo. So it wasn't even anything like that. And Hornets fans, from what I can tell, are a bit outraged that they would do this. I would say this is alarming in the fact that they were like, no, we're good. Like, that to me feels like it's not about the Brooklyn game. It's about a wake-up call to the face of their franchise. And there's all sorts of stuff happening around the league. I need to do a bigger deep dive on Houston and some of the lineup stuff. Like, I did a big lineup net rating thing for the Cavs, the 5-man, the 2-man. They're so good that I don't know that you can really see anything right now with what those minutes are. Maybe there is a number out there. I want to look up a lot of this stuff, but they benched Jabari Smith for the entire. Ime just benched him for a fourth quarter this week. Was it this weekend? It was Monday night. And I think they brought him in technically like under a minute on one possession, but that was like a real thing. And then you're kind of watching guys being benched and how they're interacting. Jabari was totally engaged in the game still, despite being benched. And Houston's so deep. I have nights where I'm like, are they better with Tari and Thompson than they are Green and Smith? Like, that seems ridiculous. And I was so excited about Jalen Green during that stretch without Şengün, where I thought he really turned a corner, just awareness alone, not just scoring. But I don't know that I've seen enough of that this year. But again, they're just so deep, and they may have a big decision to make at some point. But there's going to have to be somebody available worth all of the talent they have to do kind of a 3-for-1 for them. But I noticed Jabari was totally engaged. I did not see LaMelo super engaged. And I don't blame her for being a little pissed, because when you're subbing in all of your teammates for all of these possessions and you're not going back in the game, I don't think that's just about the Brooklyn game. I think it's about some of the other habits and the nights where I watch him and I struggle because the good is so good with him. but I think the bad is kind of harder to find, and I don't know that everybody always sees it all the time. Little love for the Lakers, and we'll talk Sixers here. Dalton Knecht, are you aware of what he is doing? He went for 37 last night. He could not wait to get the ball in his hands and then immediately shoot it. It was like a Steph level kind of catch and release night. 27 against New Orleans. He's 51% from 3 in November. You've got AD's absurd overall numbers, who's 31, 11, and 3, 57 and 41% splits from shooting, and he's taken 3 threes a game. Dalton's played 30-plus minutes in 3 of his last 4, and the Lakers have gone from 4-4 to 10-4. Now, you could hit me with the, hey, it's the schedule, stupid, and you would be right. These are not great teams that they're beating, but if this Dalton Knecht thing is real, and me and LeBron both really liked him before the draft, he was on it early, it adds such a different element to like having this kind of spacing that everyone is so desirous of having. Like if you can, what if this is real and he's like all of a sudden, because he's an older rookie too, and he's super athletic. He's not just some spot-up shooter. That was kind of the thing you start to fall in love with when you did his draft tape at Tennessee. You're like, dude, there's a lot here. This guy's a sick competitor. And so you think Reeves, and I can't, again, I still can't believe we're getting this version of LeBron, but that's great. It makes me with the Dalton fact, like if this is real, granted, he'll hit a wall, he'll struggle, he's going to have a bad shooting month, and it's just going to happen. But when you think about the 5-man lineup options they have now with another really nasty shooter, and my underplay for the preseason overall, like the over-unders, my under was just a health bet with the Lakers that they weren't going to be as lucky to have the health they had from AD and LeBron last season. If those two are that healthy, AD is this guy, like MVP candidate Anthony Davis, and you have Reeves, who's just better in JJ's system. And then you just like, oh, by the way, Dalton Knecht's now on this team. It makes me think about them a little bit differently of what they're capable of, which I did not think I would do. Last thing here, because I'm kind of going on here for a while. Team meeting time. If you hate the Sixers, watch the second half of the Miami game from Monday. Sixers were up, I think, 19 in that game, and then it was a 70-34 run by Miami on the other side. Embiid has played only 3 games. They have not had George, Maxey, and Embiid in the same game. McCain has been incredible, speaking of rookies, for them. But Maxey's been out the last 6. Embiid was sick, apparently. I hope he was sick on Monday, because that was, again, if you hate the Sixers, watch that second half. It's some of the worst basketball from a team that's supposed to be decent, and now they're tied for the worst record in the NBA with Washington. And I guess the reports, Shams had it first on ESPN. There's been some follow-ups where Maxey called out Embiid, saying it starts with you, big fella. Quote, you're late to everything. Apparently, he and Maxey have a great relationship. The more concerning thing, I think, for the Philadelphia 76ers would be that this all made it out, that the quotes made it out. But there's no way they're this bad. Paul George's advanced numbers are brutal. Embiid looks terrible so far. We kind of expected as he works himself back into shape. But that was a half of basketball against Miami in the second half of a team that did not want to be out there. And McCain's like, I'll shoot it. So I don't know if any of it really means anything. It's salacious. It's dramatic. The record stinks right now. I'm not taking any of it seriously until all the guys are actually playing together. And who knows, with the East, still be a 4 seed with how bad some of these teams have been. I didn't expect to be doing this on Monday for a Wednesday follow-up. We got Ceruti here. We're going to go through it. So you heard from me on my thoughts on the Indiana schedule. And look, if they beat Ohio State, I don't love that you're only going to have to play one team, but if they beat Ohio State, like they're in, and I'd be fine with it. We can also play the game of like, why are you guys getting worked up about this when everything will figure itself out? Have you paid attention to the industry and what we do? Because
you're listening to a talk show right now.
Right. Like if I had, we'd have college football guests come in like week 3 and go, I don't even understand. Be like, well, you know, we kind of have to talk about something. So normally I would talk about the rankings. The rankings, I already talked about them before they came out. They basically played out pretty much the way I thought they would, Ceruti. But here's the thing, like this thing absolutely blew up and it's all very tribal. And I'm admitting that I have preconceived biases about teams that have been good in the past. Like my Texas point, I understand people hating it. I don't understand how people took my Texas point and then got to Washington and Michigan. I was like, I think that's actually kind of easy to understand the difference. If a team has their coaching staff and NFL quarterback coming back and it's a really good roster, that I can't help myself but give that team the benefit of the doubt. A lot of like, why even play the games and just sim it? It's like, well, I think that's kind of more what you're saying then, isn't it? If you're saying just 12-0, who cares how it happened? But again, if Indiana's 12-0, that's a different conversation than being 11-1. And I thought the guys on TV last night were pushing for like, hey, if Indiana keeps it within 10 or 14, does that mean that they're still in? Well, it's in comparison to what? However, it got really nasty. It gets nasty every year. And basically what happens is that when you do this job, especially as long as I've been doing it, it's just a cycle of like a fan base feeling like they're now being targeted and I'm the bad guy, when in reality, this is the only time you've ever cared about what I had to say specific to your team, especially when we're talking about Indiana football. So we'll see what happens this weekend. The offensive line stuff with Ohio State's a mess, but you've already heard from me. I try to admit kind of how I see it, and I certainly have not changed my mind. But you, Indiana fans, let's hear from you. Let's hear from you. So I don't know if we've ever really done it this way, Ceruti. So I guess we're just going to fire off some opinions from social media, because this like spawned, people were doing like people were doing long form on this. Like I saw it and it was kind of like an indirect, like people are saying, and I was like, well, I think we kind of know the origin of where this is coming from, but go ahead.
Yeah, I tried to find the first comment on Instagram for the post, on the Ringer post, was like, well, who did Tennessee beat then? And it's like, well, beat Bama, pretty good win. Not too bad. But then I tried to find it this morning, and maybe I couldn't find it, but I think the guy deleted it. So good on him. I also don't think it's just all Indiana fans. I think there's a lot of people that are just like annoyed at the SEC.
Yeah,
being, like,
good call.
Yeah,
you're right. It isn't just Indiana fans at all, but it's definitely people that hate the SEC.
Yeah.
So no, I'm glad you said that, because it wasn't just Indiana fans. And
but
look,
here's
I get
one.
it. I've been doing this a long time. Like I didn't do it to be like, hey, I want to piss everybody off. I did it because I felt it. And I was like, I'm going to share this because I don't know that anybody's done the deep dive on like how imbalanced these schedules are for teams within the same conference. And then it just comes back to the expansion thing, which I've already bitched about for too many years.
Yeah, I think all those teams too that you mentioned, I think would be favored over Indiana. I mean, not that means everything.
But that's not what I. Yeah,
no,
but
I know. I'm just saying.
I'm not doing that argument, because I hate that argument. Because when I did College Game Day, they used to be like, you should use the Vegas rankings all the time. I'm like, look, I understand those guys are smarter than I am, but like Oklahoma or USC could lose 3 games and then they're still going to be favored, and I can't rank them ahead of some of these other teams.
Yeah.
But again,
That's
this fair. I'm not defaulting to that. I don't know how you watch college football and don't have some preconceived notion of like who might be good and who might not be good. We don't have a ton to go on, man, especially when the schedules are this messed up. Go ahead.
Here's one. This is from Dan. He said, disagree, Ryan. This is the truth. Strength of schedule was created by the SEC elites. And then he puts in a screenshot of, I don't even know what it is. It's no context, of just somebody saying there's a 50% chance that any team wins any game.
I don't think it's 50-50. I don't even know what that one means. I don't
know what half of these mean. There's another one. Marcus goes, college football is the only sport where the media talking about the sport actively tries to kill Cinderella stories. It's fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, I can kind of see how he got there, but yeah, I don't know.
This is what, 11 verts. This is a lazy take. You just name some teams that sound good to call that strength of schedule for the SEC teams. Okay.
Or you could look at the strength of schedule rankings, but that's all right.
Another one, CJ. Hey, Ryen Russillo, should we even play the games, or should we just use blue chip ratios in August to seed the playoff? I'll hang up and listen. I like the end. That's actually funny.
Yeah, this is kind of what it's been for 2 straight days. I mean, endless. It's still going today as of today's taping.
Here's a great one. Jay Merck. The SEC sucks. Stop pretending it's 2018 and Saban is still at Bama. NIL has evened out the playing field.
Maybe it has. That was Danny Cannell's big thing.
Well, the SEC sucks is aggressive. I don't know that.
That one feels a little aggressive.
There are years
I've said this to everybody, but if the Big Ten won multiple titles with multiple teams, then guess what? I would think that conference is the best conference. I've never understood why this is so tough for everybody. But But again, it's no one ever wants to say like maybe my thing isn't as good as the other thing. Nobody ever does that. It's the guy at the gym scenario. No one ever sees like the guy at the gym with the girl that everybody's been looking at for months and goes, you know what, good for him.
Yeah,
he's
happy
better
for that
looking
guy.
than me. Yeah, he's better looking than me and probably just tighter game.
He earned it. This is a good one. Man, this is from JBR Bracketology. Man, they're doing to 2024 Indiana what they did to 2023 Florida State. Indiana will be left out if they don't beat or lose to Ohio State by more than or less than 7 points. I don't know that the Florida State thing is the same thing.
Florida State thing's way worse.
I would agree. Here's a good one. Chris, hey, dumb fuck. Check out Texas's schedule again. It's just as bad.
Fair. Totally fair.
Tough, but fair.
Yeah. But I don't know why people would argue that I'm wrong by pointing out somebody else's schedule that's also hasn't been great. And by the way, Texas' schedule is tougher. There was a lot of like metric stuff. Like, how come you didn't use this? How come you didn't use game control? Game control is one of the dumbest fucking things ever. And it's like, do you really want to use all the ESPN power ranking stuff? You want to know who's number one in FPI? Do you want to know who's number one in FPI? Texas. You want to know who's been like number 2 all season, even after the Vandy loss? Bama. So I've been doing this. We can do it all day. If I really wanted to, like, I already know the chess moves.
Here's a good one. And then we've got one that we need to end with. But a guy just screenshotted you, a couple other people talking about it and said, Sankey picked up the phone.
I've talked to Sankey 0 times. I think we've tried to get him on 3 times. He won't come on. If anything, I should be like,
the other way around.
Let's go Hoosiers.
All right. Do we want to get to the best one?
Yeah. Let's get to the best one.
Dan Dockich. Dan Dockich. Who's an interesting Twitter follow these days. I like Dan. I used to work with Dan back at ESPN in the Mike and Mike days. Like,
he's a real wild card. Yeah. He was great.
I haven't talked to him talked to him forever, but he was always an enjoyable guy to be around. But, you know, it's definitely been a little aggressive as of late. He quote tweeted the video of you and McShay talking about it. It was the FanDuel tweet, and said, dudes that were never in a locker room or other than to take a peek, to get an autograph, or to take a picture.
Okay, say that again.
Dudes that were never in a locker room other than to take a peek, get an autograph, or take a picture. Just to be clear, McShay played quarterback.
Let's start with the facts, because we're about trying to get to the truth, as hard as it can be and misguided, and sometimes it doesn't work and you get stuff wrong. But just to be factual, to your point, McShay played quarterback in college at Richmond. However, after they recruited him, they switched to the zone read. They looked at him because his 40 time's still going, and they were like, you're never playing in our new system. So we're going to keep you on. We're not going to kick you out, and you can just advanced scout for us. And then people were like, this guy's like a savant. And then he got a job with Gary Horton, and the rest is history, right? I did do it to look at dicks. So he's half right. Like, when I first started in Boston, I'd be in locker rooms, and that was one of the benefits, because you'd get to look at other guys' dicks.
Yeah. Huge.
And one of the, speaking of, right. So when I went to like national radio, and then it was just way less dicks, and it's definitely a different job after that. So he's half right. Nailed it.
That checks out. This is also the best one. Somebody replied to him and said, huge lib too. Because it always has to come back to that.
Yeah. No, I mean, I don't even know. I don't know what to do with any of that stuff anymore. The assumptions about,
you just keep people on your toes.
At. Yeah, no,
they don't know what. They don't know what to think of you.
I know.
You do get a win though. Nate Robinson agreed with you. He replied. The Nate Robinson, by the way, who he fought. Did he fight Jay? Who did he fight? He fights.
Yeah, we didn't. Yeah, we didn't like that outcome because that was back before like anybody realized that Jake had really been training and guys are like pro athlete. Nate is going to. You shouldn't even brought that up because we appreciate Nate reaching out to the show, and now he's like those guys brought up the fight because it didn't go great.
No, Nate, dunk contest champion, right? Washington, so he's watching Big Ten
Shrek
games,
and Donkey.
Shrek and Donkey, exactly. He did say, "I'm with Buddy on this one," referring to you, so he's got your back. Good for you.
Yeah. Hey, man, it happens every year. There's always like one or two teams that feels like they're being slighted. And yeah, I just think 10 weeks in, Danny Cannell has Indiana number 2 in the country in his earned, not given Danny Cannell rankings.
It's a great bit. You got to admit. I actually love it.
So Danny, who pulled for Iowa, not because he loved Iowa. He doesn't know anything about Waterloo. Nothing. He doesn't know.
And nothing about farming. Come on.
Yeah, he doesn't know that America needs farmers.
Never planted a seed in his life.
Captain UCF, right? Mr. UCF wearing the hoodies. May have even gone to the fake parade they had. Love them. He eliminated Bama from the playoffs last year. Then they were in it. And a play away from maybe playing for a national championship and probably one of the most challenging years of Saban's career. Eliminated Bama from the playoffs again this year after the Vandy game. Probably going to be in the playoffs. Although the Auburn game is always really, really weird, no matter who's who in that one. And guess what? I would just tell all of those fan bases, he's not doing it for you. You're a pawn in his moves. And he has the Hoosiers number 2 in the country.
Got to get Danny back on soon.
Earn, not given.
Print the shirts.
Okay, that was good. I was glad we got some feedback there. I'll try to be better. Sharpen up. Shave off the rough edges. Go Hoosiers. You see them on Thursday Night Football starting at 7 Eastern on Prime Video. And, of course, also our other guy, Ryan Fitzpatrick, who's been on the podcast, Fitz and Wit, a new original series by Wave Sports. You can get that podcast every Monday, new episodes. Andrew Whitworth joins us. What's up, man?
What's going on, brother? Happy to be here, man.
Yeah, no, it's good to see you again. So I think there's a bunch of different things that I want to do. Let's just start with some straightforward NFL stuff, and then maybe we'll get to some of the fun stuff as well. When you see a win like the Bills against the Chiefs, and we've seen this a lot during the regular season, and it's kind of like the guys that you're going to have to get. How much can you actually like take out of that win? I mean, a win's a win, but it's almost this haunting thing of like, we've done this before, we've been here before, and then it's different in the playoffs.
Yeah, I think a win's a win. I went into it, and I know Fitz will get upset. It's a huge win for the Bills. Obviously, they want to do it, and I think that to me, it was a win-win. I'm still saying it matters what happens in the playoffs, but I do think being without some of his weapons, the way they really went about the game, the long drives, methodically going down the field, figuring out ways to go the distance against the Chiefs defense. I feel like the next time the Chiefs play them, like that's in your head a little bit of like, man, these guys just kept finding a way to go down the field, and Josh didn't even have all his weapons at his disposal. So I do feel like this one is a little different because I think it's one that to me, it just felt like they needed to do it. They've done it in the regular season before, but maybe not in this way. And so I think this is one of those that you could build off of.
All right. Did you have somebody, whether it was Cincinnati or LA, where you felt like, man, they're just a bad matchup for us?
Well, I mean, obviously in LA, the Niners had a pretty sick run against us for a while there. And it's just flat out, I think we were just so defensive. And, we were like the bitter, ex-boyfriend or girlfriend who just, you keep trying to say that you're okay, but you're really not with the whole situation because it was like, oh, well, one game we sat guys because we already had made the playoffs. And then the next year it was like we were hurt. And then the next, it's like, oh, these things happened. There's all these excuses. And then the run just continued. And I always say this, it continued up until the point where week 18, the year we won the Super Bowl, we have a lead on them. We've come out and finally played well against them. They come all the way back and beat us. We go to overtime. They beat us at the end of overtime. And I can remember the training room the next morning. And you really look at it, that series has changed a little bit since then. That morning, I remember guys sitting there going like, dude, they're actually just a good-ass football team. Like they're really freaking good. And it was like that was the first time I'd heard guys just acknowledge, like, maybe they're actually better than us. And we got to play our absolute best to beat them. So I think it's pretty ironic that you get into the NFC Championship and we have to come back and beat them in that game, and we do it. And I think, to me, it's kind of changed now, like where I don't think they see them quite the same. I think they see the Niners as, man, they're as good as us, if not better. So, like, we have to play our absolute best. I think it's changed a lot of the demeanor of that locker room, because for a while we were in denial, and there's no doubt about it.
Yeah, I like how you said that, because I think looking at it just as a guy watching on Sundays, and you'll see the track record of one team against another team, and you'll think, okay, is there something they're doing with their blocking? Have they figured out their quarterback better? And there's definitely some truth. But then sometimes it's just, well, they've been better than us, and that's why we lose to them.
Or it's just a bad matchup for you. And then the Niners were a bad matchup for us. What they were really good at was probably like the couple things that it's like, man, this is the team that, we really don't have a great answer for this. And we really this is kind of the one thing that's going to hurt us. And so I think when you look at it, sometimes it's just those bad matchups where it's just like, man, this team kind of owns us. And it's because really how we're constructed and how they're constructed. This is probably the toughest test for us. And oh, by the way, it's also a divisional game with tons of implications all the time. So there's a lot of factors that go into it.
Okay, I think that's a good lead-in then to what we've seen with Lamar against Pittsburgh, because I thought this was the week. We're like, look, I mean, this is all lining up. He's going up against Russell Wilson. I mean, they've got to get him this week. And the thing that I loved about the defensive approach from Pittsburgh is just that you got to figure out a way to contain. It's not about tackling Lamar. It's about containing. And the only reason I really get excited about this is I remember at ESPN, I was waiting to go on SportsCenter. Teddy Bruschi and I were in the back, right? We're in the back of the set. And I was asking you about something that they used to do. And he then demonstrates the entire thing on me by grabbing the front of my suit. And he goes, so this is what we would do whenever we went up against this kind of guy. He's like, it's contain and then shed. It's never upfield. And I'm like, all right, you're fucking up my suit. Like, I have to go on TV here in 2 seconds, Teddy. I love you. And when I watch Pittsburgh, I thought the coverage was great where Lamar was in between. And so, again, is it game planning, or is it now just a bad matchup, things that we have to think about when the playoffs get seeded out?
Yeah, I think it's a tough matchup for them. I really do, because if you really look at what Pittsburgh's going to try to do offensively and defensively, they're going to try to possess the football offensively. They're going to run it. They're going to take a couple shots in the game. You look at them, the marriage are really running pass. I think Arthur Smith's done a great job. And then, so they're going to kind of keep your possessions limited. And then defensively, they got this guy named TJ Watt who's running all over the freaking field. And then he has obviously had an impact on how Hightower and Herbig and those guys play. Hightower's out of this one, but what do you know? Pittsburgh Steelers, of course, the next guy jumps right in and he's flying all over the field, causing turnovers. I mean, their ability, really, Pittsburgh's, to create these splash defensive plays is unbelievable. I mean, it's like they always can find a way to create that fumble or that huge turnover or score on defense. It's very rare, whatever it is they have bottled up over there. But I think it is. I think it's a tough matchup because you got guys like Cameron Hayward who set the tone in the interior of that defense. And you go, all right, you're not going to be able to run it in the middle as much. And then on the outsides, we got edge rushers who aren't the type who they're heavy, setting the edge guys. They are chasing, energetic, athletic guys who all game long are flying around the field, which is a bad scenario for Lamar. It's harder for him to get out and do his thing when you have those type of guys. And I think really just to me, it's one of those that it starts, people can say what they want. It gets in your head and you start to think about it. I've never played good against this team. I am a huge golfer. I say this all the time. There is holes as a golfer, if you play a lot of golf, that you're like, man, when I play this golf course, for whatever reason, every time I get on the fifth tee, I freaking rope hook it into these trees or I shank it over here. There's things that mentally get in your head and it leads to your performance. And I think, to me, you see these when these happen, it just changes. You do something, you're tight, you squeeze it a little hard, you fumble, you make a pick or a bad decision. Or like in this game, it looked like Lamar locked in a lot to try to do what he wanted to do instead of what he was being given some. And so I think you can say all you want, but it lives in that headspace of yours that you haven't been able to find a way to be really successful against a certain team.
I'm going to set you up here to maybe go in a couple of different directions because we like to have the quarterbacks on and they can just lament about the state of quarterbacking and everything. And I remember the first few weeks of the season, I was thinking like, is it just this too high safety party that everybody's having? And then no one's really countering yet with rushing attempts. Like, I don't mind that the game has evolved to a place where it's like, maybe we just don't have to like waste passing opportunities with all these runs, even though I understand you guys like to run block more than you like to pass protect. But I don't know if that has happened yet, but it feels like the Chargers came into the season being like, we're not adjusting anything. This is going to be our game plan. So are you waiting for this maybe correction to some of the things that we saw in the beginning of the season where teams are going to be a little run heavier? Or do you think that just it's gone, like it's not going to happen because everybody's in love with these passing attacks?
Yeah, I think some teams are set up where passing is really all they're going to do. I mean, you look in Cincinnati, I think that, like, you look at that team, they're constructed that that's what they're going to do. I mean, they don't care really what you come out to do. They're going to mix runs in, but they're there to throw the football with Joe Burrow. But I think you see some teams that have committed to it this year, and it's leading to success. They're playing great defense. They're running the football, and then they take shots off of it. I mean, the Chargers are a great example of that. I mean, Jim Harbaugh's stats from when he first took over the Niners to the Chargers, they're identical, damn near. And so it's like he just brought back that entire philosophy and plan. Like, let's play awesome defense and let's run the football and be physical. And I really think that that's the only reason that when you have these conversations about what it looks like when teams get into the playoffs and you say, oh man, what's playoff football? Like, go look at the Chiefs. People say what they want about the Chiefs stats, but man, I always said this. It feels like Andy Reid just plays games with people in the regular season because he knows they're so good. Because when you go look at the playoffs, the last 2 years in a row that they won a Super Bowl, they all of a sudden in the playoffs play tons of 12 and 13. They all of a sudden, all the run game stuff changes. They start running power leads and pull leads and physical football plays. And then they build everything off of that and they play great defense and they win. And that's why I think teams like the Steelers, who you're like, all right, well, maybe they are competitive, but they're not one of the elites. I don't know. Their style of football in the playoffs, limited possessions, great defense, calls a turnover or two, is actually what's really successful. I mean, everyone talks about the Ravens last year, and it's like, what did they do when they got into the playoffs? All of a sudden, they decided to throw it against the Chiefs a ton, and they lose the game, and all you wanted them to do was run it. And I mean, to me, I think there's be some teams that I think might cause some stir in the playoffs this year just by how they're actually built. They play great defense, and they run the football, that if your style is not that, you're going to have a tough time getting them out of the playoffs because that style wins that time of the year.
Okay, now offensive line stuff we've heard, okay, no one plays in the preseason, you don't hit enough, and this has led to it's not just too high, it's not just passing all the time, it's just that offensive lines are not connected the way that they used to be. Is that true?
No, I don't think that's as much as I think that position takes some building some calluses. I mean, I think it takes a little bit of, you got to get out there and build the toughness it takes to play the positions. I mean, one of the things that, injuries are injuries, but you see a lot with some of these young guys is they miss so much time. I mean, they miss a game here, come back the next week, miss a game there, or they're leaving games inside of a game, like sitting on the sideline. They're not even like truly injured to where it's like, oh, they got to leave the field. They're just out for the rest of the game. Like, in my mind, it took me a lot of time to have patience with that whole thing. I'm like, well, I don't even understand. Like, you explain to me the injury that you can't finish a game with, but like the next week you can play. Like, I don't even understand what that means. Makes zero sense to me. So that thing to me is interesting. It's just some of the calluses and toughness that you have to build. Now, some of that is a little bit of training camp's changed, right? But I think that you have to develop a way to mentally challenge guys, create toughness. And I think now with how training camp's changed, I think you're going to see more coaches go back to, all right, the limited time we have, we are going to hit every second we have, and we're going to play in more preseason games because I think you need to see who are your tough guys, who are the guys that have that callus, who does have the ability to sustain, because that may be my best 5 guys, is the guys that actually can survive that training camp and physically be ready to go. That's probably the best implication that through a 17-game season, these are going to be the best 5 that I can put on the field, and I can count they'll actually be out there. Because I think that's one of the biggest problems too, is there's so much in and out that it's hard to build any continuity, and you need to see who you have that's healthy enough to go play week in and week out. Because to me, that's one thing that doesn't give enough credit. I've always said this, like even when you had I love that PFF came in the game because it finally, although I don't agree with it all the time, it finally gave linemen some scalable thing that people started to go, okay, let's figure out a way to give linemen a number. or a grade of somehow that the public can know about. But at the same time, I used to always say, you should negatively grade guys who miss games, because the reality is every game you miss, whoever your backup is, whatever level they play at, that's actually what you're providing to your team at that time. So that tells you a better story of what kind of player that is. Like if you're a great football player and you're a highly graded athlete at left tackle, but you're missing 3 or 4 games a year, you're costing your team those 3 or 4 games. So that should reflect in the kind of player you are. We aren't playing a stat-driven game where it's just per yardage a game or touchdowns a game. Your availability is one of your greatest traits. And to me, your team being able to count on you, there's something that should be able to measure that.
If you could build an O-line right now, like who's the first guy that you would take in the league?
Oh, man. I mean, right this second, I think, there's a couple of guys that probably these young guys that are just, I don't know. Some of these guys crack me up. Like, you just look at even Tristan Wirfs, Penei Sewell, some of those guys that have been able to play both sides and be productive like they have. Like, that blows my mind. I mean, if I played to play right tackle, you might as well put me in a blindfold and tie my arms behind my back, because I would have no idea how to get out of a right-handed stance. But I think to me, you probably got to say that Penei Sewell's one of those guys that you'd have to put on the list of, if you're starting a group, he's got to be on it. I mean, I also, I think that to me, one of the harder positions you see in the league to find a guy that's really dominant at it, like a Creed Humphrey, finding a dominant center would be probably a great place to start too. So I really look at it, to me, it's either get that really, really elite tackle that you think you need if you're going to start a line group, right now going forward in the league, guys that have a lot of time left, or that elite young center that you think you can kind of build an offense around, because those two positions to me are really kind of, if you can have that, either the center of your offensive line is something you can count on for the rest of your career there, or you got that elite guy at tackle and then you kind of fill in from there. I think those are two of the spots that to me would be the first thing to jump off my mind.
Yeah, as a reformed ball watcher and making sure, I'm like, hey, they're always going to show the replay. So pick somebody out and watch. And Aaron Donald was maybe the first interior defensive lineman where you could watch the entire game through him and laugh your ass off. Just going, this is so ridiculous what he does and how he gains all this attention. But Sewell's on that list for me. And every Sunday night when he's on a Sunday broadcast or he's on any of the primetime stuff, you'll get a couple moments where you'll think how, like, they can do anything with him. Like, he'll get outside and you're thinking, and then I'll like double check his weight and go, he's that big and he's doing this kind of stuff. And, look, I just think it's one thing to just pass block, run block and all these things, but it's like, no, we have a lineman who can get outside and then we can throw behind that or we can run behind that. It definitely opens up the playbook for you.
Yeah, I mean, he's a rare guy. I mean, the abilities he has really in every phase of the game is extremely rare. I've always said that's one of the reasons, like, I've always kind of kept Trent Williams, even before this last little run with San Francisco, that he's been so good. Throughout his career, I've always put him kind of at that top of that list for me, because when you really talk about every single phase of the game, this guy can dominate. He's one of those guys that, to me, has been probably the best of his era in that sense, that like there's not a single part of the game that he can't absolutely be a factor and a dominating factor in. And Penei Sewell looks like a guy who for his career will be that way, which is going to set him apart from all the others, because there might be guys that can pass protect really, really well. They're really effective in the run game or something, but there's very few that in the screen game, pass game, run game, out in open space, hell, you're even trying to give him the football down in the red zone, on this release screen throwback, so those kind of things, you're just not going to find many guys on the planet like that. He's a rare dude.
When you think back to, like, when you had Carson, a couple years into his career, he had been into, I think you got to LA and
right after the ACL injury was my first year there. So his comeback from that.
So when I look at some of the younger quarterbacks, I wonder what kind of role the offensive line can play in even talking to a guy. I imagine because you're a rookie, you're not going to start talking to Palmer a lot. Was it a little different with Goff once you were with the Rams? Like, did you feel that was a spot for you to be able to talk to him differently than maybe when you...
Yeah, it's massive. I mean, to me, when I really look at now doing what I do, covering the game, the first thing I'm looking for, and even later in my career, when a young quarterback comes in, I'm scanning the offensive roster and going, all right, what vets are on that team up front? because the skill guys, it's tough. A veteran receiver can help a guy to an extent, but most veteran receivers are probably used to whatever quarterback groomed them. And so their perception is going to be, here's how you should do it. And it's usually really based off a guy who may be nothing like the current rookie quarterback they have. And so you may be asking him to do something he just can't do. That might not be his style. That might be the way he operates. But a veteran lineman that's in there that has been in an offense or been around other quarterbacks and understands really the dynamic of the huddle, the dynamic of like, hey, what we're expecting from you in your drops, how our offense is built, what we're expecting from you in a communication standpoint, what we can handle for you. That's the first thing I'm looking for when I look, because I go, all right, this guy's going to struggle. I mean, when I looked at Chicago's roster, it's the first thing I thought for Caleb Williams is like, all right, who's the guy in that huddle who's talking life into him? Like, you can tell Jared Goff, you put Jared Goff on his podcast right now, he'll say, man, Whit talk to me every freaking snap, like where I'm standing, what I'm doing, how fast I got the ball out. Oh, that was a good job getting this out. Like, it was a good job with that call. Like, every play, I'm giving him feedback in between plays of like what we're expecting, where we want you. Hey, what's this three? Is this 3-step? All right, dude, when you hit that back foot, get this ball out. Like, we're gonna keep their hands down. Oh, this is a deeper drop. All right, listen, this kind of guy, he might go underneath. So like, be ready to kind of lean to your left a little bit if you're going to have to hold on to this thing, because I'm going to take him underneath you. Like, so all those type things that like they're getting feedback from veteran guys, it's a huge factor for a rookie quarterback, because a lot of times the receivers are give me the ball. Like, hey, I was open. The coordinator is in his ear chewing him out for the wrong read. Like, no, what are you doing? The linemen are there going like, hey, man, how do we be productive? Hey, dude, like, hey, we need you to do this. We need to do that. Like, that's the only kind of feedback he's getting, where somebody's going, hey, man, what do you need from us? What can we do for you? Those type of things. And so to me, I always felt like that was my job. I had Andy Dalton in 2011. So it was like experiencing his journey and then go to the Rams. And I thought that experience really prepared me for when I had to deal with Jared Goff. And it's like 2017, you come in, you got to get confidence in the Goff. Like, that helped me for that situation. So it's really like understanding what those guys need to hear and feel and kind of developing that relationship. To me, it's one of the biggest factors. If you're going to draft a young quarterback, you better have a veteran lineman that they can lean on.
That was an awesome answer, because, I'm sitting here looking at Caleb, and I'm a huge Caleb fan. I loved him before the draft. To share with you, as the audience has heard, I'm sort of indifferent just on like, maybe it'll work, maybe it won't, with so many of the college guys. And I'm such a huge fan of his. And then I look at, they've got DJ, they bring in Keenan, they draft Rome, they've got Komet, and then you're telling me it's an entirely different thing. Like, look at the O-line. All right, let me ask you this, because you've been with, the Dalton part of it, Goff, everybody loves. Can a quarterback be an asshole? Can he just have an asshole personality and it still work?
It depends on the type of asshole he is. So, I always say this, like, if it's an asshole like I love, like somebody who loves to kind of talk some shit back, has a little shit in their neck, that's great. I think that's awesome. But if there's somebody who kind of is like, leave me alone, let me do my thing, I think that's going to be trouble. Like,
and they're not awesome.
Right? Yeah, because you better be really good. And then even then, like, the reality of playing that position is you're going to struggle and you're going to have bad times. And if your guys don't love you, I look at the league now. I was actually just telling somebody this morning, like, go look at the teams that are really successful offensively, not built off the run game, just their actual success. Like, and tell me how good of dudes the quarterbacks are. Like, they're guys that you're like, God, I love that dude. Like, the teammate he is, like the person he is, much less how he plays. There's a lot of that right now in the league. And it's almost like you need to pass the personality test a little bit in this league right now, because it's really about how much the group around you, if we keep talking about all the things these young kids are coming in and experiencing, right? They're all being pulled a million different directions. Social media, marketing. Marketing deals. Russ, I didn't have a marketing deal my entire career. Like, I don't even know what that meant. You know what I mean? Like, a marketing deal. These guys are getting pulled every direction possible. And I'm talking about everybody on the offense, right? Linemen are getting deals, lowered, pizza deals, whatever it is. So when you're that quarterback, you better be a dude that's like, actually, all those guys want to, like, you're their dog. Like, they want to play for you. They respect you. They look up to you. Like, they want to go out and ball because we're all together and we're like a family. And you got to have some of that now. And I think that you look at the Josh Allens, the Patrick Mahomes, the Joe Burrows, Lamar Jacksons, you look at some of those guys like, man, that's what they are. They're dudes that you want to hang out with regardless if we're playing football or not. And I think that's really what's kind of taken over the league at that position is you better be the kind of guy that's one of the guys, not the guy. Because I think when I played, whether it was Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, Drew Brees, like there was a little bit of an aura of like you revered them more than like you thought of as like you hung out with them. And I think that it's a little different now.
Yeah, it feels like you described Stafford perfectly, by the way.
Yeah.
I don't pretend to know him that well. We've had a couple encounters. We have a couple mutual
John
friends.
Wayne, baby.
But just the way you dudes love Stafford, it just feels like it's a special level of just love for the guy behind center.
I've always said this when I love Goff and Stafford. I had a great opportunity to have a lot of success with both of them, but it's interesting. Like they're totally different people, right? So like I've always said, Stafford is John Wayne. Like he is the baddest freaking cowboy in the bar. And everybody's like, dude, I just want to like have a beer with that guy. Like that is the toughest. He never says a word. He never complains. He's got blood coming from his lip and he's still going to win. Like he's going to fight everybody. He doesn't care what the situation is. So you love him because he's John Wayne. And then Jared Goff is like the teddy bear you've had since you were 2. Like if you tear my teddy bear's arm off, I'll kill you. Like you don't touch my teddy bear. Okay. And like that is literally Jared. You look how much guys love Jared. Like they love him. They chant his name. They go crazy for him every time he has some success. Like he is like that little toy they've had since they were a kid. And they're like, you will never touch my toy. Like that's how the way guys love him. They both have that, but it's just different. Their personalities and the way that you care about them.
Do we talk about LSU here?
Oh my gosh. I just talked about my teddy bear. Now you want to depress me like this? I mean, I'm frustrated. Right. Listen, Fitz and I have our own podcast. We just started 2 weeks ago and I just shared this, man. I just went from like dad of the year to like, I got a lot of work to do. So I planned my 2 trips with my boys and I talked about it on our podcast this week. It literally, I take Michael to the trip of a lifetime. We go to the Ravens game, Bengals-Ravens. He gets to hang out with Burrow and Lamar. We go to Washington the next day. I interview Jaden Daniels for our show. He gets to meet Jaden, hang out with Jaden. They give him all kinds of Commanders gear. Dan Quinn's awesome to him. We fly to LSU, go to LSU Bama. We have a great time hanging out with Todd Graves and the Raising Cranes crew. Like we have a blast. Go to College Game Day with Kirk. Like it was awesome. Get home and my other son's like, hey, Dad, I know LSU lost. You planned my trip a while back. You said LSU was going to the SEC championship and we're going to the SEC championship together. So what's going on? So then they lose to Florida. And now I'm like, great. So my one kid gets trip of a lifetime. I'm dad of the year. And now Drew, man, my son Drew is like, hey, Dad, if they're not in the SEC championship, what happens to our trip? And I'm like, well, buddy, we're going to have to pivot. All right. We're going to have to come up with something else. That's a rough one. We'll figure it out. So I'm trying to circle some dates. We'll figure something out. I'm going to take him to some kind of sporting event. I don't know what it is, but LSU, you kind of ruined my dad trip. So I'm not happy. Not happy.
I'd say he might want to question his dad about his lofty assumptions about an SEC title game appearance.
I had a lot of faith. I had a lot of faith, maybe too much faith. All right. Sometimes you bleed too much purple and gold. All right.
I want to end with this. Again, Fitz and Wit, the new podcast out every Monday, the couple episodes in. Did you already feel like you needed to apologize about being upset about the Fields to Wilson thing? Because podcasters don't apologize a lot. And I felt like you were groundbreaking in that moment.
No, it's kind of one of those things that I felt like in that moment, I really saw it as a chance for the Steelers to say, all right, what does it look like going forward? I think I didn't have a good feel for how good and competitive they really were compared to the rest of the AFC, in the sense that it's like, hey, to me, it's building for what you're going to be in the future. Now, Russell Wilson comes in. We've seen the success they've had. Obviously, it's been great. They've still struggled in the red zone some, and you can easily go back in that game with the Ravens and say, if they just don't make so many mistakes, I don't know if the Steelers win that game. And they've already started to kind of, hey, we're going to implement Justin Fields in a little bit in some of these situations. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out. But yeah, I just felt like, hey, you know what? I've been in a Pro Bowl with Russ. I've been around him, obviously played against him. I'll give him his flowers, give him a little love. I rejected him on national TV. I got to give him a little love. I'm a lineman. You still got to protect the quarterbacks, right? That's what we do.
Even if he had that Pro Bowl outfit from those infamous pictures. So
Yeah,
I love.
Well, listen, there's a reason I selected Fields the first time, but I gave the apology. Okay, that made it all better. All right, it's all better now.
Hey man, we'll see you on Thursday night again. Fitz and Wit, the new podcast out every Monday. Thanks, man.
Appreciate it, brother.
You want details? Fine. I drive a Ferrari 355 Cabriolet. What's up? I have a ridiculous house in the South Fork. I have every toy you can possibly imagine. And best of all, kids, I am liquid. So, now you know what's possible. Let me tell you what's required.
What's up, everybody? It's Life Advice, lifeadvicerr@gmail.com. We've got Kyle, we've got Ceruti. We also have a Wargon picture that we're going to drop for our College Football Alliance pick because the guy is on fire. And I want him to get the recognition he deserves. Do we want to start with some feedback? That's
always
maybe a Friday feedback, but I think it works here. All right, here we go. My husband is a loser. I'm a 43-year-old woman who hates listening to this podcast. I know I'm supposed to say gym stats, but I have none. My husband and I do have twin 17-year-old high school basketball players, and he always tells them they play like the final season at Ole Miss, Marshall Henderson. That's the worst basketball advice I've ever heard. You want to talk about one of my least favorite players in college basketball history. I have no clue who that is or what that means, though. Well, that's bad advice, ma'am. Just be straight up. My problem is my husband forces me and our kids to listen to this podcast on the way to every game, every vacation, every trip over 30 minutes away. He listens to every podcast at work the day it comes out, but then re-listens when he forces us to hear it. I can't take it anymore. Please tell him how big of a loser he is because he won't listen to me. He values the opinion of you gaggle of strangers so much that maybe you can finally help me. You read one of his nonsense emails on Life Advice years ago, and he still, all caps, forces his family to listen to the 8 minutes of you reading his email at least once a month. For years now, it was a dumb email about wanting to fight Ryan on some rough and rowdy. I have no clue what that even is, but he thinks he's clever. He can't even fight. He'd lose to the skinny man bun soccer guy in a fight. Who's that?
Man.
Oh, have you seen his haircut lately, dude? Come on.
Oh,
Yeah.
man, that was a long time ago. All right.
The day you read his email, he called me ecstatically like I cared at all caps. I don't. Please, for the sake of my sanity, tell him how big of a loser he is for liking a dumb podcast so much. Please don't use my name because I'm an adult, but he will know who you were talking to. The kids do shoot threes at an alarming rate. Wow, that is one of the best emails. I mean, Ceruti wasn't great for you.
Wasn't great for me. Also, claims to not know who Marshall Henderson is, but then that last line about my kids shoot a bunch of threes. Like, do you know who Marshall Henderson is then? Sounds like a little confusing. Okay.
Well,
One Shining podcast. Was OSP around for the Marshall Henderson experience?
No, I don't believe so.
Why don't you do a little 5 minutes with Tate on that?
Okay, let me write it down on my whiteboard here.
Just a revisit the Marshall Henderson era.
There we go.
Westbrook watched a Marshall Henderson game, and he's like, dude, guy needs to take it easy. Ever heard of shot selection? Wow. Do we tell this guy he's a loser, though?
No.
He's not a
You just need to stop
loser.
this behavior is what you need to do.
Yeah.
That's what you need to do.
He wanted to fight me? I don't even remember this.
I think I do remember
vaguely
that email,
remember
and I
that.
think I hated the email too. But but I'm glad we got our hooks in a while ago, and he's been here ever since. So I hope we don't lose him. I mean, I had this problem when I was like young. Like we had a I was actually a Tahoe, Chevy Tahoe, and we'd take like long trips. We go to Long Beach Island once a year. That was our big deal. Beach Haven.
Good days? You
Yeah.
like those days?
Yeah, love those days.
Arcade, some
Found
ice
out about
cream.
GPSs, but no, I think it's a 5 hour. It's like a 5.5 hour trip, and so like we'd bring people. The kids would. There's 4 kids. By this time, there was probably only 3, and the kids would. There was like a little DVD player in the roof of the
Drop down.
Drop down little screen, and the kids would bring their movies and stuff like that. And I decided my birthday one year, I asked for the box set of Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Like I'd amass them one like Christmas or birthday at a time. So I think I ended up with 5 seasons. And that's when it was my turn. That's
Great
what
gift.
I would do. I would pick Fresh Prince of Bel-Air for 5 hours And that's what it was. And on our trips, I was like, yep, it's Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. I think I'll go season 2 this trip. And my family still makes fun of me about it today because, the song and stuff like that. But like when it was my day, that's what I did. I hammered them over the head with Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. That's all I wanted. And I was like, I think this is awesome. You guys love it too. And I'm, just turned 31 the other day. They still talk about Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Get out now. I was 13 and it annoyed them. You're an adult. You're a grown man. And you're bashing everyone over the head with this. So just find a better time to consume it. Like in hindsight, my New Jersey beach trips probably weren't the best time to get on my fill of Fresh Prince.
I just wonder.
I had no idea where that was going, but that was great.
Thank you.
It was great. It was.
I was like, where is
I still feel sick about it.
Yeah, but you were 13.
You shared. The whole premise is like you shared.
But the thing is, I didn't get it. I didn't get a reciprocation. They were like, yeah, we know, and we're starting to hate it. With
what did other people watch? What were other people's picks?
My sister was Big Brother Bear. I used to be like the Disney classics, Hercules. That's one of my favorite Disney movies. Stuff like that.
Great Sword in the Stone.
Great music. You know what? Sword in the Stone. Yeah, take it or leave it.
Yeah, it's
I love that.
Watership Down. You want to make some kids cry? There you go. Watership Down. That's like an adult movie. Anyway,
I don't know what to do here because here's the thing: we're not losing this guy, so we could probably call him whatever we wanted to. But he's a P1. He's not going anywhere.
Yeah,
right.
We apparently already ripped him, so he's not going anywhere if we do that. I think the listening back to it with they clearly don't enjoy it. Like, are you doing this because it's like, hey, it's my car, I'm driving, I get to pick the music? Because that's definitely a thing. But I feel like if you're a dad and everyone else in the car is annoyed, is that really worth the satisfaction? Should you just throw on some music, throw on another pod? I don't know. The listening back to me is the weird part. You've already listened to it at work, and then you're going to make your family, who apparently doesn't like us,
you bowled a perfect game or something because we read your email.
What are you doing? Yeah.
What about those Russillo under the breath moments he may have missed first time through?
Yeah.
I get complimented for those a lot.
Yeah.
Maybe he didn't catch it.
Like when you do those on Bill. Those are good.
Speaking of never catching it.
No.
Yeah. Do you think Bill ever gets any of them, or he just hates me?
I think he's like, I got a lot to get to, Ryan, if you're fucking done.
Yeah.
That's all right with you.
He's got a schedule to stick to.
Yeah. Look, great email, except for the Ceruti part. Sorry.
It's okay. He probably could kick my ass, so it's all right.
Well, I don't know. We don't know. I don't want to follow up on that. Do the kids like it? It sounds like she does not like us at all. I think that's established. Do the kids like it? Is anyone listening to anybody? Remember we just talked about this,
with
the guy, a couple teenage kids in high school who play hoops are really listening to me. When they hear my voice, do they go, this is the good stuff? Or are they like, this fucking guy again?
Russillo, he's for the kids. Yeah, I don't know. Does she not like us though? Or it reminds me of, I've told this story before, but my roommate in college, we'd listen nonstop to Dave Matthews Band, and I can't listen. I hate Dave Matthews Band to this day. And it's not even a Dave thing. It's more of just oh my God, I have to listen to this again. I don't know that she hates us. It's just that it's being forced on her. So she just hates it because of that.
Dude, my wife prefers a silent car ride sometimes. And that I don't know what to do with that. I don't know. That's not insane. Silent like I can't talk, but doesn't really want anything on the airwaves.
Not for the Indians.
It's not all the time, but sometimes it's this is gonna be a 40-minute trip. It's you think we could just not put anything on? Yeah, sure.
Does she wait, but you guys have a conversation?
I'll put I'm leafing through Spotify as about to pull out and she's like, do you think we could just not? Okay.
Oh man.
You don't even want to see if there's any weird radio on we could laugh at and have a little shared joke? Yeah, let's just talk. So I mean, it might not be she hates what she's listening to. She just this isn't the vibe for this, 30-minute trip to practice I'm into. But, sometimes I win that battle. Sometimes I don't.
I would say this. Thanks for listening. But clearly no one enjoys it as much as you do. So maybe it's a you thing. Maybe it's a you moment. Maybe it's something you get to look forward to in those alone times. But apparently you're already listening to it before, so thanks. So we're not going to tell anybody. I do wonder, I would love to know what the numbers would be if we just, I'm not saying I want to do it, but what do you think would happen, Ceruti? You're in management. If we just did life advice and never did anything else.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely get a lot of reaction to be like, hey, monologue, guest, we'll see. But I always skip ahead to life advice. I don't know. I feel like it's kind of like the too much candy. Like you can't eat candy for every meal, right? Or else you're going to get sick of candy. Like, you need the other stuff. You need to eat the meatloaf. You need to eat the broccoli. And so I think it's too much of a good thing, I think, is a real thing. So I actually don't think it would work.
What would the category of the podcast be? Is it comedy?
Lifestyle.
Yeah, health and wellness. Health and wellness. I love when I see health and wellness in a bio. I just get so excited.
Boats.
So you're not sure either, are you? Okay. This is a quick one, so we'll just get to it. God, man, Ceruti's taking it on the chin today, but
oh no,
that's all right.
Has Ceruti ever heard of a freezer? I'm a bit late on the whole pretzel bun saga. I tend to save.
We covered this. I'll save you the email. We covered this. Somebody asked me this. Multiple people have talked to me about this. When you put bread in a freezer and you defrost it, it's not the same. It tastes like crap. I don't know what to tell you. Like that's
if you throw it on a grill, though, I think it animates it a little bit.
It's not. You're right, but it's just not the same. And I don't want to eat like bad bread.
I like to reserve space in the freezer for shit that deserves to go in the freezer. And Meats. I think that I don't know if pretzel buns make that. I don't know if pretzel buns make the cut.
I wish Ceruti could see my freezer. Hamburger buns, pack of bagels mingle freely next to containers of San Marzano tomatoes and chicken broth. I freeze just about everything. And that goes for pretzel buns too. Pop one out an hour before lunch and let it defrost on the counter. Or throw it in the microwave.
It's not the
for
same.
1 minute on power level 3. You're welcome.
No, nope, it's chewy. Makes me I've done it with the bagel thing. The bagel thing is bullshit too. When you unfreeze a bagel, the texture's not the same. And I'm not going to eat like a mediocre bagel.
I grew up in a frozen bagel house and I didn't love it. I can tell you that. You missed that early window.
You talked to your therapist about it? I think I've been through some shit.
I'm in the basement, by the way. I'm literally like 15 feet away from my fridge. I'll walk you through it. Like there's a lot of, frozen ground beef. We got veggies. We got,
basement fridge, huh? You are,
well, yeah,
you're doing well.
Must be nice.
You got a second
fridge?
Stuff.
We're talking about a second fridge?
It is a second fridge. It was here when we bought the house. Yeah.
I should be taking advice from you, man.
There's plenty of stuff in there, man. It's just bread frozen is not the way to go.
Ceruti is right. The microwave bread world. Yeah, okay. Hey, what are you doing later? Setting out some buns because I'm going to make some turkey sandwiches an hour from now.
Yeah.
Nice.
Team Ceruti on this one.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Let's see. God, we've gotten so many that are they're just Friday feedbacks, which is good because I think I've had
We're gonna do one next week.
I had one where I was like, I think there's been maybe 2 where I go, not your A effort out of this one. This is the one I wanted. Okay, because this one's insane. All right. 61230, poor man's Taylon Horton Tucker. Shout out to the Flathead Big Fork regional area. Ryan and Chris Long will enjoy that. We enjoy Big Fork, Flathead. I get notified a couple weeks ago that I'm a groomsman in one of my best friends since freshman year of college's wedding, taking place in 2026. Planners. Wow. Problem is, I'm inclined to think he's been hung up on a girl that we went on a spring break trip with since 2016. Parentheses, relations. Said girl messages one of our mutual friends 6+ weeks after my best friend's fiance announces their engagement. Quote, I can't believe blank is engaged. 4 days later, my best friend randomly out of nowhere asked me to invite said spring break girl as my +1 to his wedding.
Oh, come on.
I've not said anything to my best friend that our mutual friend said. I'm suspecting he's not inviting her because he doesn't want his fiance asking questions. How would I invite said spring break girl that has had a new boyfriend for 4+ years to a wedding of her former fling without her current boyfriend being invited? How should I tell my best friend that his former fling is inquiring on his current relationship like this without causing a rift in his relationship? Any suggestions are highly requested. Dude, how many bad ideas can you pack into a paragraph? Go ahead.
I saw a golf video and it was definitely staged, but it reminded me of this where like these guys were on a golf trip and then they just like randomly invited the one guy's ex and surprised her there with him on the course and he was just all mad about it. And that kind of seems like this situation. Like, why are you just fucking up this guy's? Like, he's got a good thing going. He's engaged. I mean, unless you think there's a reason that he doesn't really actually love the girl that he's with and there's a reason to sort of like throw his life into, up in the air and into a spiral. But man, just let the guy live. Let the guy be
dropped
happy.
the deposit already. Come on. He'll figure that out. He paid for this mistake. It's fine.
Yeah, mostly just stay out of people's business like that unless you are 100% sure that he's going to regret some decision in the future or doesn't want this. And I don't think you didn't say that, so I don't think that's the case.
If you're on this guy's team, you make this not work and make it seem like it's no one's fault. If you want this guy's life to go, to succeed and go on as planned, this thing falls apart and you make it seem like it's no one's fault. That's it.
Okay, but let's retrace our steps here in the email, unless you understand this differently. But when he says, my best friend since college, right? Said girl messages our mutual friend 6+ weeks after my best friend's fiance announces her engagement. 4 days later, my best friend randomly out of nowhere asked me to invite said spring break girl as my +1 to his wedding. Right.
Yes.
Why does he... First of all, you don't want to do it because she has a boyfriend, so that's stupid. Why does he want her there, unless, there's some really, God damn, I can't even, that's not very wedding-y.
Yeah.
Greg. I just don't,
fuck yeah, dude.
Understand why, unless, this is kind of like a weird thing that I've never had, is dudes know what I'm talking about here, but like the guy in your friend group that's just this sort of weird, like he's kind of detached emotionally from any intimacy. And he'll be like, yeah, dude, she's awesome. You should hang out with her, And not to say that you have to be like so, altruistic or whatever to not be like that. But you get the point. Like, did this guy have such a good time with her? He's like, man, you're my best friend. I want you to spend the weekend with her.
I want to share.
Yeah, right? Yeah. You understand what I'm saying here.
Way.
And
but she has a boyfriend.
Right, she has a boyfriend. So does he want her there because...
That's what it sounds like. In rereading it sounds like maybe he I don't know what the reasoning would be, but he wants her there, doesn't
to
want...
see him in a fucking new haircut and a tux? I don't know.
No, I think...
Hey, how hot do I look?
Maybe a bad rom-com plot here that he's hoping... I don't know, man.
I wonder what percentage of people cheat on their spouse in their wedding night.
Oh, wow.
It's not zero.
Yeah, it can't be zero. There's a lot of people in the world.
A lot of people doing a lot of stuff.
The logistics of that feel really difficult to pull off, though.
I don't know. Some people get hammered.
I mean, is this a fucking Hail Mary for this guy? Like, up to the last... I don't understand. Either way, it's just a bad idea, which is why I don't think you need to
more
think
context. I want to follow up here.
Email
what's his deal?
Like, hey, dude, why? Can you just ask him why? Like, why?
Hey, just wonder what the game plan is, Chief. What are we running here?
Because otherwise, it feels like a terrible idea. But yeah, to you mentioned, Ryan, maybe there is something to him just being like, I don't want my fiance asking any questions. But why do you want her there? Why? That's the strange part. There's no answer.
Why would you invite this scenario? And then imagine if your wife found out that you did this. This is one of those moments you're like, why are you getting married? Like, if you're still, I'm trying to think of all, like, obviously we can get a million emails. You didn't think about this. You didn't say this. Yeah. Okay, fine. Like, we could run it and we could just list a bunch of possible scenarios. But if I'm the emailer, I'm like, good luck with all that. I don't want anything to do with it. And on top of, like, even if I was super attracted to her and you were simply saying, hey, she's awesome, I think you guys would get along. Like, that's actually whatever our fling was, whatever. I'm married now. It's not the big deal.
Why is your wedding the time for this
union
to come together? Like, could this have happened at any point in the last couple of years when you weren't getting married?
Yeah, I guess he's thinking a lot more. I mean, I think not everyone, but I think it's common to have that one thing that ended not badly, amicably, summer ended, school started, you got a job, you moved or whatever. And it was just like, yeah, like we didn't really play this out. I don't really, it's one of those things you think about, but, and I don't know, I guess I guess you have big thoughts as the date approaches that you're getting married. But I mean, this is poor planning, and it would be terrible execution. So I think you just can't follow. Like, play dumb to make sure this. I think
you ask why. I think you got to ask why.
Oh, all right. Fine.
I want to ask why, and I don't know anybody. I just want to know: is it that he thinks you'd be a great fit, and he has not? Is he such a narcissist that even at his own wedding, he wants an option, or he wants her to see him?
Yeah,
because it ended. I'm so confused, but I think that the only advice is just don't do any of this stuff. Why would you do any of this?
Yeah, this isn't a good
unless
plan.
She's just ridiculous.
Once again,
right, which is always the trump of everything. Right,
true. But once again, what she has a boyfriend. How is this going to work? Like you're taking, even if you did work this out and this thing went through, you're taking a chick with a boyfriend
woman
to your best friend's wedding. Like that sucks for you.
Why does she want to go? We haven't even addressed that. Does she want to actually go to this thing? That makes it even worse.
Another great question.
Right.
Man, I don't like any of this.
Let us know how it goes.
Was that guy you think that she texted and the other friend, like, dude, you know who hit me up the other day? Cindy. Talking about your wedding. And then, like, over the next 4 days, he's like, he can't get it out. Maybe the way this guy described how that girl reached out, like the third friend, maybe the way he described it was like, dude, she was shaken up.
Like I played them all out. I can't think of any scenario where say I was killing it and loved my wife and wanted revenge on my ex. Hey, you should come to my wedding. No. Don't like my wife. Totally regret it. But it's kind of too late. You should come to my wedding. Fling. No. No. Hey, best friend. This girl's amazing. You guys would be great together. And I'd like you to have your first date be at my wedding. No.
Yeah, like maybe he's just trying to amass as many people who are just like, hey, speak now or forever hold your peace. And he's just looking for people to speak now.
He's planning. He's got 3 plants in the audience. He's just hoping somebody had enough whiskey beforehand and to stand up.
She gets up and gives a toast. She's like, he's not the best kisser, but... all right. I'm so... I don't know that we've ever been this confused.
Definitely reply back with an update.
Yeah. Just you, though, because I don't need...
Yeah,
this is the part where I hate the emails. Like, what you didn't even say was that the potentially cousin could. Like, yeah, we didn't say that. All right. Thank you to everybody being involved this week. A lot of stuff. A lot of people. Lot of stuff going on this week. Thanks to Wargon for just keeping it all together and giving me the ad reads early in the morning. Let me know what the rest of the day is going to be like before the gym. To Ceruti for fucking eating fresh bread because I'm on his side. And for Kyle still having the Fresh Prince DVD box set. There's no chance you don't still have that.
Yeah, it's over there.
Love it. And I love that about you. All right, that's the Ryen Russillo podcast. Check us out on YouTube. And, of course, always subscribe on Ringer Spotify.